Welcome back to Lobotomy Corporation. I'm Grillmastah, and today we have the Little Prince. It appears to be a mushroom. There are hands dangling from ropes around the middle of it, and what appears to be faces on the bottom. The armor and weapon are right here, a polearm and armor that has little faces in the feet and little pockmarks like spores. When you send somebody in, the more often that they go in, the more they gather spores on themselves. The spores proceed to transform them into something else. Employee Razorblade is feeling quite hazy because of the Little Prince. The fox said, "You know, the most important thing cannot be seen." Perhaps the Little Prince is not what we are seeing with our eyes. The end of employees who were tamed by the Little Prince were always tragic. Many employees who finished working on the Little Prince complain that they can't eat mushroom anymore. Razorblade, who has been coming in several times now to the Little Prince, has come in too many times. He is transforming into something else. Something much more terrifying. And then he now needs to be suppressed. When you have one of these people escape, their weakness is to red, also to black, and extremely to pale. They aren't that strong. You don't have to have the best armor to take them out. But they proceed to also cover the whole hallway in spores. Upon defeat, you have to watch out for spores being left over. But as long as you survive, when it escapes, it'll go back to normal. When it escapes, it will also call people in. When the Little Prince proceeds to melt down, it puts little spores into the air that starts calling people into it. To stop the spores, you have to click on their faces over and over again until they go away. As long as you pay attention to the pathways to the actual Little Prince, you should have no problem stopping it. And once you click on all of them, the countdown will go back up to 2. There's 4 as a grand total. The story of the Little Prince. It's called Giant Mushroom among the employees. As the nickname goes, it resembles a sizable mushroom or a colony of fungi. It continuously spreads spores, which are visible with naked eyes, into the air. Most of the employees are not fond of this abnormality. No employee is generous enough to care about a giant mushroom spewing mysterious spores while they have other dozens of work on their hands. On top of that, only a few employees volunteered for its observation. We could only record very little information about it. Originally, the company assigned observation work purely according to as the shift system. However, after that incident of magical girls a few years ago, an employee opinion started playing a role in assignment of works. Animate spores are created from the abnormality flowing through the air. It mainly invades an organism via respiratory system. It is difficult to notice the initial symptoms because an employee inhaled these spores feels nothing but a light dyspnea and sandy sensation in the throat. Thus, a mask is mandatorily worn when approaching this abnormality. If an employee inhales a certain amount of spores, tumors start developing on their body and eventually they become a monster with the original form hardly noticeable. In this stage, they are hostile towards everything in sight. They must be terminated with extreme prejudice. The damage will be severe if the primary infection is not stopped because the spores are highly contagious. Also, it is assumed that the spores have hallucinatory components. and extreme caution is advised when working on the abnormality, since the abnormality has strong desire to reproduce and its reproduction process is fatal to employees. Counseling session record. Employee John. There was a guy, not really talkative. He was that guy who would glance sideways at us, like expecting us to talk to him. But there was something peculiar about him. He volunteered to work on Giant Mushroom. We had no idea what part of that disgusting mushroom did he like. It was kind of disturbing that he would spend usual amounts of time with the mushroom containment chamber. Who knows what kind of monstrous thing he would take out from that thing. We decided he finally went bonkers when he talked nonsense about how he became a friend with the mushroom. It was a common business, though. Lots of things happen here. One employee going insane was not a big deal. We hinted him to get some psychiatric tests, but he just gave us a condescending look as if he knows something that we don't. A few days later, as we know, he kicked the bucket. Did I tell you that it was me who found out he was the fungal monster? The birthmark on his forehead. If we couldn't find the birthmark on that thing, we never would have guessed that it was him. No one actually knew that he had a birthmark except me. He had no friends, you know. He, after becoming the monster, just wandered around Giant Mushroom's containment chamber. We tried to lure him to somewhere not crowded because he attacked everything on sight, but he didn't move 10 meters away from it until the moment of his death. That's why we decided to rename the abnormality. Because of complex reasons, like pity for the guy, we became a friend with the mushroom, in remembrance for his tragic death. He always said he didn't need a friend, but I know it was bullshit. He needed a friend. That's the reason why he didn't know that he was being infected. Going crazy in hallucinations, not knowing that he was becoming a monster. The mushroom just tamed the poor bastard to become a tool of reproduction. The guy whose name was not known, Alex. Employee Alex's note. Human minds are too fragile. It cannot contain everything a person is. Do you know what the mantis shrimps can see hundreds of colors that humans can't? This is a simple example to illustrate my point that it is detrimental to believe and judge everything solely on what we see. I don't actually have many friends. I hope you don't misunderstand. I don't make friends. Not can't. We as human beings don't understand each other. A person thinks of him or herself as a completely isolated entity, making complete sympathy impossible. But ironically, an incoherent instinct of mob mentality survived over the course of our revolution. We play a risky game of staying inside of the line while vainly trying to understand invading the others. I am long done with this game. That was the reason why I volunteered for the observation on the giant mushroom. No one wanted to get close to that abnormality. It must be because of the petty reason, such as how disgusting and alien it looks in their eyes. Actually, I felt somewhat superior when everyone looked surprised at me saying that I will do the work. The mushroom didn't do anything special, but I patiently observed and recorded its activity. The day it spread powders of enchanting color, I thought the abnormality was giving me a reward for my patience. After that, I underwent a special change. I could perceive a higher level of reality, hyper-reality. It was a hand he stretched out for me. I took it and was rewarded with an invite to such a special place. It was possible only for me. We talked about a lot of things. He welcomed me because I was the only one who could realize his essence. He talked to me through minds. I had been imagining, yearning for the moment to have a conversation with mind. To be completely understood, the feeling of unification. It was exhilarating. I could barely hide my joy. Omitted. I wanted to get closer to him. I wanted to be part of him. I had always been thinking about him and waiting to enter his containment chamber. I wanted to belong to him and understand his world. I can feel my heart is ready like a bud blossoming. I was slowly becoming tamed. An excerpt from the record. This record is a part of the wet surveillance camera in the Abnormalities containment chamber caught. Unfortunately, the visual feed was blocked by spores. All that could be extracted was the audio. Considering the content of the conversation, it is safe to assume that the abnormality spore contains hallucinatory agents, because even after a thorough analysis of the audio, no other voice but the employee's could be found. After a few hours, they said the employee underwent severe state of frenzy and was shot to death by another employee. No, I don't have any friends. Like I said before, I'm not fond of such contradictory relationships. But at least, I think you can be my friend. Human language is too simple. I cannot illustrate what I would like to call this relationship, but I think I have to settle for friends. Yes, I am just one friend material for you. I accept you. You changed my life. I had been living my whole life being depressed, not knowing what to do or talking to anyone. All I had been doing was just working. But you took me, who I trashed myself. I felt being understood as I understood something more than everything. You saw through my essence as I saw through yours. It is truly a rapturous experience. I want to understand you too. I want to love you, become you. I am born human, lived tedious life, and might have kept doing so until I died. Had it not been for you, I am so happy that I met you. Even if this is my curse, I will love the curse as a blessing. I will think about you to the day my mind collapses and crumbles. I will close my eyes, thinking about my only friend that came from the far universe. Your abnormality makes a slight ventilating noise and goes silent. Management tips. Quality counter will decrease if insight work isn't carried out regularly 3 or more times. By this, they mean you have to go in there at least 1 out of every 3 times on insight. It's weirdly worded. Employees who worked on Little Prince have a chance of being infected by its spores. Send them to work on other abnormalities regularly to avoid infection. When the work result was bad, quality counter was reduced. The Archer employee, who was constantly working on Little Prince, appealed for suffering at the containment unit. After that, Little Prince-like tissue emerged from his body. An Archer employee began to transform into Little Prince 1. The Little Prince attracted the employee to its containment unit when the quality counter became 0. As the employee led by the Little Prince entered the containment unit, the same phenomenon as in the previous state occurred. When suppressing Little Prince 1, pay attention to the spores that occur at the time of death. The spores give sustained mental damage, which should be immediately stopped if a panicked employee is found moving into the Little Prince's containment unit. It is better to do attachment, instinct, or repression on the higher the stat you can get. Insight is a little bit lower, but you have to do insight every couple, and you want to make sure your employee goes from this into another abnormality and back. The weapon is white damage, but it is like the red and purple weapon that increases white damage on this for this one on the enemy with a 25% chance. This is armor that is pretty good with red and white, not so much on black or pale. The gift isn't too bad. 5 SP, 2 success, and 2 work result. It is a non-escaped object, but it will call people in. And that has been The Little Prince. Until next time.